Hello and welcome to another Best Junglers episode, this one for patch 13.20, and yes, there's a lot to say about the changes to the jungle. Camps are healthier, ganking is going to be more punishing, counter jungling is supreme. We also have nerfs and changes to Smite. Basically, it's Jungle 2.0 in Season 13, and once again we have an absolutely new meta. Some junglers are new, some junglers have changed. We will go over all the best ones for every single MMR as well as low and high. And hey, guess what? Now with Mobalytics, you can actually track your LP gains over large sample sizes to see where you've plateaued and how far you've climbed. And when you combine that with using the best items and builds, using Mobalytics' new itemization feature with the best data, it's faster, it's more accurate, and while most sites just assess the items individually, Mobalytics now assesses them as part of a build, so it's way more accurate and reflective of how good they are. You can't just show a third item and say, look at the win rate, when you have no idea what the first two items were. All of this updated and pushed live to the companion app where you can put it directly into your client, along with all of the pre-game tips, post-game tips, as well as in-game tips. So if you want to dominate on the best junglers in the best way with all of the best information and keep up to date with all of the new itemization changes as the meta develops, click the link in the description below to download Mobalytics today. Welcome to the S tier page, and on the top is Graves. You want to know why? Because Graves doesn't care about camps being healthier to take. Graves doesn't care about a lot of things because he's kind of meta agnostic, but they buffed Ghostblade and they thought, hey, that was a great idea to do, who knows why. All of a sudden that item is very, very strong again. Graves, on the other hand, was already building this with Collector. He was already dominating with it in terms of strong jungling. Now his win rate has jumped to 52%, and remember at the intro where I said counter jungling is kind of strong because you take a camp and then it respawns at a higher level, thereby having way more HP and the jungler who's behind has to spend 10 years taking it? Yeah, Graves is pretty good at making you do that. And even though they nerfed runes, Fleet Footwork, while it was nerfed, isn't going to suffer the same sort of damage reduction as others, and so he can just kill you anyway. I mean, he was doing that regardless, but then they buffed Ghostblade, so now he's doing it extra. So I guess I can call them meta surfing champions. If you want one of those, Graves is basically the epitome of that. Yeah, but Graves likes to snowball and scale fast. What about the snowball reduction? Who cares? I made a gameplay video on it yesterday. Guy's absolutely fine with it. Tankier people, less damage in the game. He doesn't care because he can itemize and play against literally everything. Graves, go play it. Next up, we have Briar, and she has also shown, like Graves, to not care about the nerfs too much. She already has a lot of damage, she has percentage heal and percentage damage, which means you don't really care as much about the HP on those camps, and that's a running theme here. If a champion has some sort of percentage HP metric, specifically missing HP as well as max HP, those jungle monsters are going to be taken quicker than champions who do not have that, so very specific champions do get hurt. With, of course, counter jungling being punished and making sure you're controlling your camps being of the utmost importance, having a fister and a fighter here doesn't really seem as logical, except when that fighter can guarantee success on those arenas. And then obviously, as she has no camp up, she can just kill you and take yours. Remember, while the pet was nerfed for damage dealers and buffed for tank users, she has that heal, which means even though people are going to have less sustain in the jungle from the pets, Briar has no such issues. Like with Graves, he has no such issues because he can kite them with his auto attacks. And if you honestly want to learn more about how to play Briar, come join the Virkayu.gg private Discord server and jungle course system. We have a lot of great Briar players in the server, including some high elo ones that are just smurfing it up and can adapt to all changes, much like Jarvan. And again, we covered him in the coaching class last night because we basically said, look, which junglers are going to be absolutely fine? And I said, look, Graves most likely will be Briar, Jarvan, and guess what? They all are. Jarvan, on the other hand, yes, he had the percentage max HP nerf, which will hurt him indirectly in this particular arena. But what doesn't change is the fact that Jarvan can do absolutely anything he needs to do. Counter jungle gank, sequence fight, scale well. And here's the thing, right? If you're going to build more tanky, more HP, more resistances, you get a little bit of that benefit back from the jungle pet as well. But mostly, because you don't mind being a little bit behind in econ from being counter jungled, being a little bit behind in that experience, you can dedicate more time to just out-fisting them like with Briar and ensuring lanes have that lead, and you can get them back on the counter jungling. Jarvan, like Graves, is one of those meta surfers, absolutely fine in all kinds of situations, as long as their numbers are good, and obviously Riot haven't directly nerfed him. In this particular case, that nerf didn't really do much, and Gold Drinker and Shojin are still a thing. Next up, we have Nocturne, and again, like with Jarvan, Shojin is still a thing, Strikebreaker is still a thing with him, and as well anybody else that builds it. Black Cleaver is still a thing. He can absolutely navigate this meta fine, and also he likes to counter jungle, put you behind. You will notice, if you get counter jungled and you waste your time, your downtime from clearing, or you miss certain timers because you take really bad gank assessment opportunities and you die or whatever, you're going to notice how easily you fall behind, and if your kit cannot actually clear the higher level camps with more HP, you're really gonna struggle. Nocturne is one of those champions that will punish you and then use their ult on you and then use their ult on the laners, and you can do nothing about it. An agent of darkness indeed. Now listen, we have 3 AP champions in a row and then Rammus. Rammus is absolutely broken on this patch. Get it right. And we will talk about him in a second, but first we have to talk about Lilia, because Lilia, again, percentage max HP damage, was absolutely disgusting before this patch, still is this patch. She's able to navigate those higher HP camps much easier. She can counter jungle you very easily. She sequences, she controls the camps, you can't take them away from her. Powerful ult, powerful skirmisher, ridiculous healer, nerf that healing please. True damage, movement speed, she has everything she needs in the current iteration of the game to absolutely dominate. Nothing will stop you climbing if you play Lilia other than yourself. People often overthink things when their champion's actually strong. They think, oh, look at these jungle changes. Will it stop my champion doing blah? Except the thing is, the blah is now the strongest thing in the game and you didn't have to stop it in the first place. The fundamentals will carry true. You keep doing what you were always doing. You're not going to avoid dragons because of the nerfs. You're not going to avoid Herald because of the gold nerf. You're still going to take those things. You're still going to play the soul game. You're still going to trade Baron for soul. You're still going to go for Elder. You still want both Heralds. You're still going to go for Barons. They're just going to take a little bit longer. The risk goes a little bit higher. And, you just have to adjust to those little things, but what you do doesn't change. Also, with Evelyn here now, as well as Lilia and Fiddlesticks next, they buffed the Dark Seal. Basically, hey, all of these champions can do percentage damage to camps. They don't need to worry about counter jungling, and in Evelyn's case, can just one-shot anybody without even a combo anymore. Just a simple QE usually does the trick when you're really fed. No R or W necessary. Although memes aside, make sure you're using your W for slow and full charm and using your ult correctly. Yeah, we don't need to meme everything to a point where people are actually taking it literally. Charms well, she skirmishes decently, and she assassinates everybody. And of course, with that E, with the ability to actually execute high targets with Magic Shred on the W, she has no issue hitting the tankier people. She has no issue killing people, even though there's less damage in the game. And the one route she likes to go, Electrocute, is actually okay, not as badly nerfed as we thought, but First Strike is absolutely fine. Nerfing Conqueror and First Strike by absolutely little amounts when they were the most OP runes in the game is kind of funny. So while she carries on dominating the Assassin AP range, Fiddlesticks, who kind of is the same thing, does that as well. Again, he scales on his W with percentage HP, so he's absolutely fine doing more damage, more heals to those camps and easily sequencing and no stress. You can also one-shot people anyway because he took First Strike as a default anyway, which means that damage amp is still there, the cash infusion is still there, and the hippity-hoppity sucky-sucky is always going to be good no matter what. Although at this point, you wonder if he will actually be nerfed if this win rate keeps climbing, so keep that in mind. And finally, we have Rammus with his 55-56% win rate, but then you have to realize one very important thing. The first 4 champions on this page can just ban him. Haha, problem solved, no real other counters, just go and vibe. If you happen to be the Lilia, Evelyns, and Fiddlestickses, and they pick Rammus, you just like, well, I'm AP and I can deal with you. So even though he is OP and you can use him in high elo now, and you're seeing a lot of success with that, bear in mind there are counters and ways to play around it. Even though you can be destroyed by Rammus, understand this, he still is easily banned if it's the direct counter, or you're picking AP so he's less effective. Remember these things, but also remember that Rammus is currently king of the win rates, and will be dominating this patch until otherwise nerfed, but as with always, consider nuance. As we do a side shuffle over to the A tier page, Ivern could definitely be on the S tier page, but I do feel we're talking about junglers to carry, win, and climb. While he can do that, it comes at the expense of understanding a radically different way of, and at the end of the day, you are still an Ivern supportive style champion. You can 1v9, but it's from the shadows, and most people just don't do that properly. 55% win rate, also absolutely dominating on the patch. I just don't quite feel he has that zing that those on the S tier page have. Unlike Echo, who does. Again, percentage HP on that W, that's where you smite up front, you get missing HP procs. How fun and juicy. He also, like most of the champions in this video and across the game, they're getting less heal back from the pet. So if you can clear healthily, speedily, and still have great PvP for ganks and counter jungling, typically those are the ones that are doing the best at the moment. Also those who like to buy resistances and, build a little bit tanky. Nidalee does not build tanky, but she does counter jungle, invade, and make you have to, do camps that have a gazillion HP, all the while you're down 2-3 levels. You spend 10 years on your Grump, she ganks your top lane, take the Herald, ganks bottom lane, ganks the mid lane in between, takes a dragon. By the time you finally finish your Grump, she's invading your blue and you have to back out or die. Most of us will die because at this point we're irritated. So as long as you're applying that good pressure to Nidalee, you should actually have no issue smurfing with this champion. She is also a meta smurfer. We have one of the best Nidalee challenger one-tricks in the private server as well. He's just laughing, just saying, whatever happens in the meta, I don't care, I just play Nidalee. I show up, go to work. The rest of you have to keep thinking, I just enjoy. And then of course, now we get to some tankier people. We have the Maokai. Nerfed and thought forgotten, and instead is actually absolutely fine. They made his damage scale better with the pets, and of course his ganking is legendary, and as with all tanks, you scale better now, there's less damage in the game now, and you don't care about being down on econ and experience or gold. I'm okay if you want to take some of my camps because I'll just enjoy my 5 CS PM and gank your lanes, and you'll not actually be able to do anything whatsoever, so think about it that way. This is unlike Karthus, who actually is just dominating once more, because again, sequencing, controlling your camps, and counter jungling Powerful, percentage HP, he builds Leandries, huge damage with a global ultimate, he can still gank at the same time, first strike minimally nerfed as well. When you combine all of these things, again, he's just gonna keep on doing what he's always done. But he also has the opportunity to basically shit on everybody else in this entire video if it's played properly. If you're a ganker and you're playing your Maokais and your tanks, you're gonna be absolutely fine. If you're a ganker who, relies on a bit of econ and falling back, make sure you track your Karthas, don't let him counter jungle you too much because he will take it all. And then of course we have to talk about Zac. I thought, hey, do I really put Zac here or do I put someone else? And then I just looked at the data and then I thought about it. I was like, if Maokai is here in solo queue, Zac should be here too. Yes, it's much more difficult to 1v9 with tanks, but because there's less damage and Zac can kind of ramp up his farming decently with his builds, you should have no issue kind of maintaining a nice little in between the Maokais of the world and obviously in between the Nidleys of the world. So you can farm enough, you can gank enough, you scale pretty well, and you do an obnoxious amount of damage. Bouncy, bouncy. After this, we have Lee Sin. Now, most people say, but Lee Sin should be higher. I almost put Lee Sin out of the video, and especially this tier, because I think it's fine in high elo with skill issue gap, but most people aren't understanding the ability Lee Sin has to still control the game and avoid what I'm talking about here. He doesn't need to be counter jungled. He can fight a lot of people. He can still gank a lot, and his sequencing is okay. He also has good items in Shojin and Gorge Drinker and things like that. Conqueror is still absolutely great. It didn't get hard enough like other runes. This is what we call an eternal champion, but always comes down to can you pilot him effectively, given what the meta is, and can you handle the matchups that are against you? If you can, he's great. If you cannot, pick something else. Same thing can be said for Talia, but at the same time, just absolutely huge. A lot of what we see here are engaged champions or, counter jungling champions. Lilia basically says, look, I can farm so damn quickly once I get a few things going. Also, if you're an engaged champion, I have my W, and I can throw you like I throw other rocks. And if I don't get you with a one-shot combo and you try to dash away, I've got the E available as well to root you. Well, stun, but you know what I mean. Good ultimate for rotations, really good moverability around the map, great ganks if you've got reliable setup, decent farming, insane scaling, huge damage, and of course a disengaged kit against all the engage. Talia, good to go. And if Rammus is OP, then you know he's atop the low elo tier list because he also counts as Briar. So Briar, just ban Rammus and you're absolutely good to go. Lilia, Nocturne, Amumu, Jarvan, Zac, and of course Diana. Diana's still fine for general population as well. Obviously her damage and farming is amazing for this meta, but I feel like she likes a little bit of that fisting. A little bit of that guaranteed counter gank and guaranteed ganking action that can be so invaluable when you're also doing the farming and the counter junglings. That being said, she's still basically fringe A tier, absolutely great for climbing. If you play Diana, you're just not going to have like super strengths in one direction or the other, but it's a total package, executed by you, great for low elo like everybody else on this list. We can give shoutouts to Warwick and things like that, but when you fall behind on him, even though you got percentage, it just feels like an absolute chore trying to catch up, so you got to make sure those ganks are good, and I feel like these ones here kind of give you the best of everything we're talking about in this new meta. And of course for high elo, if you play high elo with your champion and you reached it, you can use it to get high elo again, yay! But these are the ones with the highest presence in terms of actual execution. And you'll notice a little cheeky pick at the bottom. His play rate is low overall, but because his farming ramps up and they gave him that max HP on his Q, you're looking at a champion that can absolutely thrive in this particular meta. He's difficult to use, and obviously you have to get going a little bit, but when we are talking about a champion with such huge damage profiles, slow, utility for the team, and who scales so insanely well with his items, as well as someone who really won't be counter jungled, you're looking at a kind of hidden OP total package here, that's why I snuck him in. But in terms of the rest, you should see standard stuff. Karthus, Lilia, absolutely goated, Talia as well, Lee Sin skill issue. Viego's doing okay, obviously, you've got the Doran's Blade tech that's going around, the Lee Sins, the Graves, the Viegos. You can go Doran's Blade Jarvan as well to really leverage those new starting items as a powerful skirmishing and farming tool for you as a jungler, but at the same time, just be aware that that's not going to be the defining moment. Yes, it's useful, it's a tool. I'm sure it will be nerfed and removed very, very shortly, and these champions here can use it, and if your champion can, you should have great success. But overall, these are your champions for 13.20, and once more, another new meta this season. Riot, please give us some peace and quiet for a bit. Head to the video in the box on the top right if you want to understand a little bit more about jungle diffing, regardless of what kind of meta we're in.